the dysregulation, which would cause stress, just a lot of irregulated like hormonal functions and organ functions, and like just like a disconnection from your life, mostly because you're not experiencing it how it is, you're experiencing it from a dysregulated nervous system, which taints your entire experience.
Welcome to the New Intuitive Living podcast. I'm your host, Zara Darling, radically intuitive entrepreneur, chick drummer, equity activist, neuroscience lover, and consciousness advocate for my clients who take on profound self-discovery and alignment with their truth and step into their freedom when they choose to play with me. How does this occur? I just happen to be the premier energetic truth oracle. I created this podcast to invite everyone listening to know their truth and embody their freedom. If you'd like to decondition your programming and activate your intuitive awareness, you're in the right place to unlock your potency and be more of you. Let's keep going. Hi everyone, welcome. It's Zara Darling. I'm here with Samantha Thompson, and this is a newest episode of New Intuitive Living. And Samantha responded to my call for anyone who connects with being weird, being called weird, but understanding that that is actually your superpower. So when I put an invitation out, Samantha responded to it. She is going to share about her work that she does, and I just checked in with her, and she has pulled up something special for us in the last few days. She's been noticing something, an energetic awareness that I think is totally on point for what both of us offer, and that is this anchoring into and embodying our purest, truest self. And we'll talk about how that interacts with this concept of weird. And let's start off, Samantha, with you sharing a bit about who you are, what you create in the world, and we'll get into talking about what's weird about you too. So welcome. I'm so
Awesome.
grateful that you're here.
Awesome. Thank you, Zara. I'm so happy to be here as well. I really connected with the concept of weird, absolutely, and tying that with the true self and our higher selves in a way is what I'm really passionate about, because I think what makes someone weird is just like when you call someone weird, they're being not normal, right? They're not of the normal things of society or of most people. And I think that's what's actually beautiful about being weird, because when you let go of the layers of society or of conditioning or of programming, like you're just yourself and you're just weird and it's cool. And actually, I already shared this with you, but to share it with your audience as well, the word weird, the etymology of the word is to be like of the destiny, like to be in control of your destiny. So I don't think we can be living our purpose or our mission or our truest nature unless we're following that path of weirdness and our true selves, and then we can attract and magnetize and like be in a life that's actually of our destiny. So
I love that.
Thank you. That's how I connect the two. And then just a little bit about myself. I am a truth mindset coach. So I specifically work with beliefs that keep you from the capital T truth of who you are, and how source, universe, God, whatever you want to call it, would be working through you. So for example, if I think I'm not good enough to have this, is that capital T true? Right? And all of the time it's not, because we have the right to.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, plot twist. It's wrong. So I'm a truth mindset coach as well as a quantum spinal flow healer. So I worked with the nervous system and kind of like regulating the nervous system, but also like activating more of your energy body in yourself, basically. So that's what I do.
Lovely. So with that, it seems like and it just the description of everything is an invitation to take a deep breath. To everyone listening, like just the energy, Samantha, bees, it's just such a relaxing space that you're inviting us into. And with our weirdness in that space, what does that shift for anyone? So I want to go back to when you're giving us the original description of weird, and something that I've always, once I learned that weird was this more mystical knowingness, this destiny connection, I'm like, oh, okay, so that's why someone had to go and make it a wrongness and make it seem like an insult, because especially with the climate in the world today, with our systemic racism and coming from colonialism, I'm like, okay, that's where someone said, we can't have women or anyone being more knowing than us. And so we're just gonna start dissing that and making it wrong. And so if I call you weird, it's now an insult. And so how the word evolved from something that's maybe just like, oh, they're connected with their destiny, not right or wrong, or I'm not connected with myself, I'm jealous of them, that's something special, I'm gonna bring them down instead of seek out my own growth. So how that evolved into an insult, because it definitely was an insult in the 80s when I was growing up. And I
Yeah.
hated it. So did
Mm-hmm.
you ever get called weird yourself, or other things that did feel like an insult? How did you navigate that at the time, and how do you perceive that now that you've done your own work?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I can't recall any specific memories in which I was directly called weird, but I feel into and I do remember the scenarios in which I knew I was being weird and I wasn't received.
Mm.
And then I would check myself always, throughout like childhood, middle school, of course, like high school as well. Like, don't stand out, don't be weird, you don't want to be seen, like you don't want to be judged. It's perceived to be like life threatening. Like you want to fit into a tribe of people, like biologically. So you like shift and make yourself fit in. When it's all an illusion and a
Oof.
trick, and we need to be that weird self. And I don't see many people teaching that, especially to children or to like young ages. But it was mostly myself judging myself, like holding my voice in, holding my movement very stiff, like don't be weird, don't stand out, you don't want to be different. But
I
that
love
took
that.
away all of my personality.
Yes. I love the awareness that you're sharing, that we don't even have to be called it. We intuitively knew from this programming and conditioning that you don't even go there. Like, don't even get called weird, because like you said, it's life, it feels life threatening. So
Yeah.
we better like cut it way early. And yeah, like I can just feel it all through my body right now, like all the unnecessary angst and limiting of myself, especially in middle school, not allowing myself to be me. So I'm wondering, yeah, who else is listening that has experienced that too? We're here for you if you haven't
Mm-hmm.
already found your path. So when you're in that place, knowing I have to keep my voice, my ideas, my movements, my being small, because you're not even going to the place of where you might accidentally get into the cross the threshold of being called weird out loud. What starts to shift when you can start to be bigger, speak up more, be more of you? What's that
Mm-hmm.
journey? been? What has helped you along the way?
Yeah, thank you for that question. This wasn't just like, as I'm sure for you and many listeners, like this wasn't just like a middle school thing. It actually ended, and it never really
Like
ends.
5 minutes ago for me.
Yeah, yeah. I feel freed of that mostly within the past like 8 months, probably. And for me, it started as a journey with mindset. So, like, realizing that these limitations I put on myself are essentially fake and programs and completely illusory. And I can actually choose different beliefs that don't give me those same feelings in my body of like angst and anxiety and all those things. Now, instead of like, I'm afraid they'll judge me, I can shift to, okay, if they're judging me, they're judging themselves, and I forgive them, right? And that's not as easy.
That's a great tool.
And it doesn't come easily or naturally initially, but it's a practice, right? Coming back to the truth. And then the whole like where this really like sunk into my being and my body is when I connected with my body, with like the freedom in my body. Because yeah, I had this new mindset, but I was still very like stiff, closed off. And this is when I learned spinal flow as well. And it was like releasing tension from my body and relaxing, and all this shyness and like closed offness that I had was actually being released from my muscles and from my nervous system. And I felt safer, because we can't be weird unless we feel safe to be weird, or else we're like aggravating our nervous system, putting us in fight or flight. So it's when I found safety in my body that I can now like move and express and feel okay, embodying all that I am, all the weirdness.
Awesome. When I was reading your notes beforehand, I was really curious of how you could tie together the spine and the nervous system. And so do you have any information of how they communicate, or just anecdotal how it shows up when, like are they impacting each other? Are they co-players in some way? And nervous system and spine, and maybe share a little bit about each function as you understand it with your work. And hopefully this gives us a view into what you do also with your clients.
So just for clarification, did you want the nervous system and the mindset paired, or specifically the spine?
I'm like, for some reason, like, how does the spine and the nervous system connect or work or interact? Or if you're suggesting that the mindset is like a middle communication element, like, I'm just curious if there is anything standalone spine and nervous system.
Yeah.
And what else it makes sense to incorporate, because
So our nervous system is our brain, as well as the nerves, the central nerves that go through the spine in the body. So it actually like goes through the spine, and then it goes horizontally throughout the entire body to connect to your muscles, your organs, it's all your senses. Your nervous system is it's how you experience reality. So, like, you can see reality, you can hear, you can taste, you can touch. Missing one, smell. You can smell reality. So that's how the two connect.
I just like that as a standalone statement. You can smell reality.
You can smell reality. Breaking news. So that is how the nervous system and the spine connect. And what happens, my favorite thing to work with, although spinal flow has many benefits, is I love to work with trapped emotions. So I believe, and a lot of science actually proves, that our mind and our body are complete reflections of each other. So anything happening in our body is happening in our mind. Anything happening in our mind, a lot of the time subconsciously, is happening in our body. So if I have like a subconscious like inner child maybe experience who's very sad, depressed, this was my case, very sad, depressed, serious to herself, that's what my inner child for me looked like. And how this showed up in my body is a hunched over posture, and like just like anyone watching the video can see, you're just like looking down, you're hunched over, your shoulders are probably rolled forward. This is how the mind and the body connect with each other. So, oh, my cat is joining us.
Hello, cat.
So the psyche is holding on to these emotional things, and so is the body. So our nervous system, since it's so tied to the brain, is reflecting that and then showing our muscles and our bones how to act. So it actually can change the structure of your spinal column. Essentially, we all have a perfect spinal column and nervous system, and then it's all this stress, all this buildup, poor diet, that can actually change the structure of our body and how we feel and how much ease we have. And the mind is a huge, huge aspect of that psychologically.
Okay, so it's a question about, am I hearing this? Like the mind can send messages to the body, but the body's also simultaneously sending messages back from the body to the mind?
Yes, so
that
that's correct. Okay. And actually, most people think it's mostly the mind sending messages to the body, but science shows that 80% of the pathways, they're called afferent pathways, 80% of our pathways are going from our body to our brain. So our body's informing our brain more than our brain's actually informing our body. So when I have this like posture, yeah, it's insane that no one talks about this. When I have this posture of like hunched over, right, I'm sending messages to my brain saying you're shy, you're not safe, you're serious, you're sad, right? Whereas the second I change my posture, I'm sending new messages to my brain saying, okay, you're safe, you're confident, all these things. And that's like 80% of what's happening.
Okay. Yeah, I never heard that percentage, or that the body will send messages to the brain, because we always hear mind over matter and your brain, like think better thoughts, and, you know, like leading with the brain. In my modality, we talk about the mind is a terrible thing, waste it, like don't even engage your mind, which now if I have 80% communication coming from my body, that seems more reasonable. There's something driving me still. So I laughed when you were saying that, because I totally have been working, maybe kind of knowing, I've totally been aware that I need to involve my body in my being and my life more. And now that I hear that it has so much bandwidth to speak up and influence things, that's like a nice, juicy treat for me to like remember, like, okay, all right, it's gonna shift a lot. Sounds like it's gonna shift a lot more than an equal partner of my mind, or like it's something I've been desiring anyway, and that just shows why I would be desiring it, because it makes such a great impact. And it makes me think of those poses, like you put your hands on your hips like you're a superhero, and you put out your chest, so you move your body into the position that, like you were saying, it would send a more empowering message back to the brain, it sounds like.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so our daily like posture is constantly sending these like signals to the brain. And that doesn't mean just like so a lot of times when people think involve your body more, they might think like, okay, I need to do yoga, I need to lift weights, I need to have this like six pack abs so that I can be confident, so I can send these messages to my brain. And I firmly disagree with all of that. I think when we're talking about the body, what I'm talking about is the nervous system. So it's not necessarily your biceps, it's how regulated or dysregulated is your nervous system, because that's what's controlling either the ease and pleasure in your body and the alignment in your body, versus the dysregulation, which would cause stress, just a lot of irregulated like hormonal functions and organ functions, and like just like a disconnection from your life, mostly because you're not experiencing it how it is, you're experiencing it from a dysregulated nervous system, which taints your entire experience. And that's kind of what I work with, is pairing the mindset with the nervous system in like some of our programs that we run, so that we can get both on board, so that you can experience your reality differently, rather than from like these like lenses of illusion and fake and just bullshit, basically. So,
and I want to tie this into what a lot of people might have heard of, and you mentioned it a little bit, but the fight or flight response. So you're using all these other words to really flesh out and make it even a greater picture of how much impact there is. But what we were mostly probably familiar with is the idea of fight or flight, and which is the body or the brain saying, now am I going to die? Am I going to die now? Now am I going to die? Is this going to kill me? Is this going to kill me? And if that's the nucleus, the only core thing that can come from the functioning of this, that keeps us very small. And so even if we expand it a little bit, there's still those limitations you just mentioned, and then getting totally away from that. And like, I'm, for those just on audio, I'm pulling my hands further and further apart, like with this space is just growing and growing that we can operate from. So I just wanted to tie in that more common phrase, and I love how you're explaining it. And so what are some ways that people can, when they notice, like what happens first? They notice, what can they notice in their body or their mind? And what are some tools they could use to get those more empowering, impactful 80%? I'm totally into the 80% messages from the body up to the brain. And vice versa, of all this functioning. I love everything you meant. I'm gonna like replay this too. I wonder if I'll list that again, definitely in the show notes, all these things that are impacted by the body or the brain being out of communication.
Yeah, so I love that you brought it back to fight or flight. Sometimes I can forget to bring it back to the most simplest aspect of it. And it ties perfectly with your next question. So the fight or flight mechanism gives our body, like you said, our mind starts to think, am I going to die now? Is this safe? Is this not safe? And everything you do is protective, right? So any action you take, maybe you have a business and you want to take actions, but your nervous system is in fight or flight. You're only having thoughts that are in alignment with the fight or flight protective nervous system. So you're going to keep yourself, your ego protected, and you're not going to take the next step in your business, or in the next step in a relationship, or in your job, right? So the way to see this and to like start seeing it in yourself is you just got to stop the cycle somewhere. So the cycle of the mind and body and mind and body, you just have to put your foot down somewhere, right? So if you see that you're thinking thoughts that don't make you feel good, you start to look at your thoughts like, okay, what am I thinking right now? And how is this not true? So again, that's why I call myself a truth mindset coach, because if I'm thinking, maybe I'm not safe to, maybe this podcast, right? I'm not safe to do this podcast and I'm having fear come up. How is that not true? Right? How am I actually safe to do it? Or maybe you start at the feeling level and you see, okay, I'm feeling really stressed and anxious and I have fear coming up. Then you can look at like how that's affecting your thoughts, and how you stop the cycle is very simple like way just to regulate your nervous system is just by taking deep breaths, right? And opening up your awareness to other thoughts and other perspectives. But you just have to see how you're creating an untrue lens of the moments you're experiencing, and then find the real truth, the divine truth in them, while simultaneously breathing in deep into your body and relaxing your body. And a lot of times when we're stressed, we have like our shoulders up to our ears and we're breathing shallow, and that's sending more signals to our brain saying that like you're gonna die or you're not safe. And simply by consciously relaxing your body and opening your shoulders and breathing a little deeper, you'll start to have new thoughts. And that's a practice of awareness and interruption. So yeah, did that answer your question?
Yeah, and I'm just like, everyone listening, you're invited to take a deep breath right now. Check your body. Drop your shoulders, shake out your arms, see how your body goes back into its resting pose.
And I love that you said like shake your arms, because along with the deep breath, I work with 3 things with the nervous system, and they're all in our human vessel: breath, movement, and sound. So like those are
breath,
all things.
Movement, and sound. Okay.
So those are all things to like release this tension or whatever is going on and re-regulate the nervous system. And these are things that come from like tantric practices, like ancient like Taoist practices. Like it's like proven in a way. It's proven now in modern science, as well as coming from all these like wisdom teachings of how to like come into alignment with your true self and let go of all the things that are like keeping us from it.
Yes. So sound, what do you use with the sound element for working with your clients?
Yeah, so everything like that I'm about is guiding you back to you. So with sound, a lot of the time it's intuitive sound. So it's mostly for emotional release and expression. So if I am feeling angry and I feel a contraction happening in my body or in my nervous system, that is quote unquote negative or unproductive to my body and my mind. So there's a way to release that anger, right? And it can be shaking, or it can be grabbing a pillow and screaming into it, which is an amazing release. And not only that, is scientifically our throat is connected to our vagus nerve as well. And our vagus nerve is like one of the most important nerves in our nervous system. So it really regulates, even just by like humming. I invite like all of your listeners to just try humming like and immediately it just drops you a little deeper into more peace. And that's how we would use sound for like either intuitive emotional expression, or finding peace in the body, or just connecting deeper with the self, and finding that regulation again.
I like that. I was curious if it's like there's the sound therapies with tuning forks or crystal bowls, but this is much more portable because you always have you and your voice with you, and you can make a noise.
Our bodies are so divine, and already we're healers in nature. Like everything we do is like naturally healing. So we get a cut in our arm, if there's nothing interfering, we naturally heal, right? So anytime my beliefs are, anytime we have disease or any sort of dysregulation in the body, it's because we're interfering in a way that's having a negative impact. So we just need to remove interference, and our natural true self, which is healing from nature, is able to come through. And that's what like spinal flow is really amazing with, because it's just amplifying the ease and the healing nature in your body. And yeah, it's just beautiful. It has my heart because it helps heal me and relax my body and let me release emotional traumas. And yeah, it doesn't have to be expensive crystal healing bowls, although those are really amazing and therapeutic.
Yeah.
And truly a blessing, but our voices are just fine as well.
That's lovely. It's so relaxing to be chatting with you, even though this is all also very energetic and exciting. And I'm like, there's this calmness underneath me as well. So I'm really enjoying our chat. Thank you.
I am as well.
So let's see, with that, there's so many directions I want to go.
What's the first one that's like at the tip of your tongue?
Well, so one thing that popped up was when you were talking about making noises is I'll notice when I'm tired and not interested in taking a lot of energy to communicate with my dog. Like I've just tried to tell her a couple of times to stay with me on a leash. So if she pulls one more time, I'll just go, and so I feel it's twofold, because it's me releasing the stress that, it's probably not a good time for me to be taking a walk. I don't have the capacity to be patient with her wanting to sniff everything. And the second is, I think she totally understands like that internal growl that comes out of me.
Absolutely.
So am I speaking her language? And she it's like a correction that it gets her attention, and then she stays with me. She's like, oh, Zara's serious about staying with her on the leash. So that's something that popped into my awareness with talking about these guttural sounds.
What I love about what you said is she understands your language, because animals are primal in nature, and that's also within us. Like we are just as animal as we are like divine. And I think in our like Western society, we disconnect so much from our primal essence, and you growling in a way is so natural in terms of your biology. So yeah, she really does, or she or he, your dog, she really does understand that primal language.
Okay, so I love this. So it's like the stripping away of the programming and the conditioning and the changing of weird as a inherent talent we would all have to be divine with our destiny, and getting way back to who we are without anyone else's judgments. So is there any connections you could share with us what your experience was like? I feel like there's another layer to this, even though we talked about a little bit. So from knowing intuitively, I'm not allowed to be weird, I can't show my weirdness, and then growing into the space of, oh, it's just me, and I'm like, you talked about clearing out some like things that landed as physical manifestations in our bodies. Can you share a bit about what that process was like for you or for some of your clients when they are extracting this physical manifestation of these mind initiating judgments, and what comes out instead of like, and I want to get to the place of like, when do we realize those are our superpowers? So was there any superpower in being small and staying shy? I know things serve us along the way. That's the best we could do at certain times. And then what's this process of stepping into our potency greater and greater and greater?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I'll share my journey because it relates pretty heavily to this question. And so like we already mentioned, like I was very shy and very serious into myself and very emotionally shut off from my environment. And that was coming from a chaotic household, different emotional traumas. So in those times, that was the way for me to stay the most safe and
Mm-hmm.
peaceful. So it was the greatest coping mechanism at the time. And then when I got to college and I started to really like discover more of myself, and I realized I was having these feelings in me that like wanted to connect with other people and wanted to be more expressive. And I thought I was, but then the reflections I was getting back from other people weren't how I thought I was presenting myself. So people were still thinking I was very serious, maybe like, you know,
Mm.
like resting bitch face, like that was me. So I
So,
was
and like,
very,
so you're noticing changes inside, but it hasn't been um, debuted in a way that anyone else is noticing it different. Yeah. Right. Like
mm-hmm,
that can sometimes be discouraging then. Like I did all this work and effort and no one's noticing the new me.
mm-hmm. And what was happening is I didn't find safety yet to
Hmm.
display that new me. So my nervous system was still reacting in scenario
Okay.
in fear. So I couldn't get past the fear and really display like my light in a way. So I was still being interfered with my bodily like protective mechanisms. And it wasn't until I learned like these embodiment practices and shifting the mindset that I was able to remove some of the interference and see it as untrue, and kind of just be like, okay, you served me at a time, like you said, like things serve us at a time. The shyness, the to myself, all of that served me at a time. And that's not who I truly am. So thank you, but I don't need it anymore. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a practice of like showing up differently in moments that I still have fear. So it's almost like exposure practice. Like you have
Mm-hmm.
to, you're not ever going to feel safe to go on a podcast if you're always shy, right? You're never going to feel safe to do that until you do it and you do it and you do it. And your nervous system starts to be like, oh, wait, I'm actually seeing that it's safe to act this way. And you're reprogramming your body and your mind to experience it differently. And there was another part of your question, but I think I'm forgetting
How
it.
it morphs into superpowers and the continual expansion of potency.
Mm-hmm. How the shyness morphed into the,
Yeah,
or
did like what was a superpower under that shyness? What did you
mm-hmm.
notice come out?
Mm-hmm. Well, now I'm on the path that I am now, so helping other people like shift that as well, not just shyness, but anything that they feel is keeping them from their greatest success, their greatest pleasure, their greatest ease in their body, all of the things. And I actually love talking. I love teaching. It's like I don't know if your fans like astrology, but I'm a Gemini, so I just love
Okay.
communicating.
Uh-huh.
And uh, and it's funny to think, like I think back to my public speaking class in college, and I was like crying in front of the whole class,
Yeah.
unable to do my speech. And now I'm like, I can get in front of anyone and talk about anything, and it's so fun, and I love to connect in that way. So definitely a superpower now. And I see other people in their stuff, and I have a lot of compassion for that too. And it helps me figure out ways to connect with them in a way that doesn't challenge their nervous system or beliefs too hard. So trying to help others find safety in themselves as I talk with them as well.
Nice. Yeah. So it sounds like taking baby steps, what someone's ready to hear, so it's not a traumatic exchange itself when we're quote trying to help others.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we don't need to jump off the bridge if we're nervous to just be on the bridge. We can just look at the bridge wherever
Yeah,
someone's at. Yeah, start wherever
point.
someone's at.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, you mentioned that you do work with conscious communication.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
Mm-hmm.
like a set of practices?
I don't have a
An
structure for that.
approach? Okay.
Yeah, it's more like an approach, and honestly more of a byproduct of all the work that I do,
Okay.
in a sense that when you become more self-aware of the beliefs in your mind and how a lot of the times they can be misleading, and your reaction in your nervous system, and how you might say something to me intended in whatever way you intend it, and I might be triggered in some way that makes my nervous system mad at you. Right? When
Uh-huh.
really it doesn't have anything to do with you. It has everything to do with my mind's perception and my body's reaction to what you're saying, based on my history and my ways of being and thinking. And how can we communicate with each other and say, for example, based on what I heard you say, I'm feeling really angry, and like kind of communicating what's going on in your body while simultaneously not being attached to it. So my body is really angry, and I'm not going to blame that on you because this is just the response that I'm having.
Yeah, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I don't know if this analogy will work, but I really would like to emphasize that idea. So if we were two dog trainers, I'm gonna use the dog idea, or
Yeah.
you're a cat train. We're both invested in two dogs getting very good training.
Mm-hmm.
And you came to me and said, my dog is acting up and growling around your dog. You and I would still be on a team, with a common goal of like, let's see what we could do for these dogs. Let's substitute in our nervous systems for the dogs. So how are
That's
we
a great
training
analogy.
our nervous systems?
I absolutely love that. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so it's working as an analogy. Good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, because what I'm hearing is that, depersonalizing, letting our nervous systems show up however they show up, but then what can we also do to support them so that they're not needing so much attention and effort and work, and our nervous systems come in alignment with the overall goal. Like I tell my dog when she's pulling, I'm like, let's, because I don't want to pull back, because then I'm just teaching her we just pull each other. And I'm like, let's work on our communication. What if you go in front of me so I can know when you're going to stop and sniff, and then I'll stop with you. But the idea of how can we work together with a common goal? So if it's two dogs being trained, or if it's our nervous system getting it online, on board, and yeah, not having so I'm really big on all the distractions that could get in the way of when, like, what's actually a contribution and what's just a layer of distraction, so that we're not getting to the actual issue. It sounds like the actual baseline is like our nervous systems are taxed and stressed. But then if we put a layer of, and I hate you or you hate me, that's distracting us from diving down into just the real issue of like our nervous systems are acting up. So, and then if I try to get all into your business about how you acted up with your nervous system or whatever, I'm not getting to check in with my body and how I was in fear because someone else yelled or gave me constructive, I'm doing air quotes, constructive feedback, and it seems like an attack. Like that's, so me trying to process someone else's experience just distracts me from not processing my own experience.
And that's a
so,
beautiful thing. Yeah.
Just distractions.
And bringing that back to the conscious communication part, say you're in like relationship, or that could be friendship or partnership, and we're friends, right? And I notice that a way that you speak to me tends to trigger my nervous system. I can share that with you without asking you to change it, and just be like, hey, just so you know, like this is what I experience when you do this, and that's why I shut down and go to my room, right? That's why I sometimes respond back with a little bit of fire. And just kind of sharing our personal like body and mind experiences, and that gives you the awareness like, oh, maybe there's a different way I can say that so that I don't trigger my friend into this state. Or maybe I can just be a little more conscious of, hey, I know this triggers you, but could you do the dishes? Or, you know, just kind of acknowledging our shit, for lack of better terms, our trauma, our experience. We're so different, and we have so many different experiences, and we're all going to get upset over different things, and being able to communicate those things is a way to live in better harmony with one another.
Yes. I've recently learned a lot with this climate of racism, systemic racism and colonialism stuff that's like been around, not been acknowledged a lot, or let alone addressed. And different groups of our population are getting more consequences from those systems. And I'm having a new appreciation for communication, and especially this like conscious communication. Previously, I'd be like, everyone just suck it up, say it like it is. I would not take into consideration someone's nervous system when I'm communicating with them. So, okay, that's a good awareness. So, and then the data part of me is like, doesn't everyone want to know what's, the correct way to do things? Which also doesn't allow people's uniqueness and their quote, their own weirdness and how they'd like to choose and show up. And like, there's no right or wrong. So all of that is a distraction. So one thing I'd noticed, and I want to give a plug to a group called White People Doing Something on Facebook. Doing is all in capitals. And I think I joined when there were 6,000 people, and now there's 34,000 people. Wow. And it's run so well. The idea is that this is a space, and there's people of all colors in there. And there's people of color and Black people that are generous to reply to questions white people might not be able to ask anywhere else, or
Yeah.
they're deemed they should already know the answer to this, so you shouldn't ask that, but that's the space this group provides. And so it's a great example watching how everyone practices that communication with each other of I know this could be a stupid question, or asking the question itself could be hurtful, but I would like to get to the other side of this. And if I keep it in, I'm going to keep doing other types of hurt potentially. So just seeing how everyone practices interacting has been great. And I noticed that I would like, to berate people for even what type of question they ask. And so let's see, where am I going with this? The conscious communicating helps to understand that there's people's nervous systems involved beyond with just the words that are being said. And I guess if you have any insight or notice any change or any different trends of how these tools could be used in this climate, as our country is, a lot of people are waking up, a lot of people didn't know their impact on things, and a lot of people are like, I knew this my whole life, I'm so tired of it. And thank goodness you're waking up to it, but also I don't have time to help you along the way because I've been dealing it with my whole life. So
Yeah.
just seeing if anything comes up along those lines. Yeah,
Definitely.
you could
I,
share with
I love
us.
that question. I think it's so helpful, like you said, to what's going on right now. And the first thing with everything is work on your own stuff first. So, like, when I'm able to see my mindset and what taints my reality, which is okay. Like, if we were just like completely no personality, no nervous system things, like we would all be the same, right? That's the point of our
Which
individuality.
seems like the weird being an insult. There was some entity that was going after that target. Yeah, making us all factory workers keep our heads down. So
that's so boring.
Yes, so boring. And even if this is difficult and clunky, the rewards of it are so great. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the first step is like seeing how your own reality and your own perspective is tainted by your own stuff, like your belief patterns and your trauma and your body's reaction to things. And when you have that form of self-awareness, then you can look outward, right? So we work in first so that we can look outward with a clearer lens. And so then I can understand, sorry about that, my phone battery is low. Then I can understand, okay, if I have my unique perspective, you have your unique perspective and your tainted lens on reality, and he has his tainted lens on reality. And so different genders, different races, different cultural backgrounds, different country, like there are so infinite perspectives on the same thing that we're all living on earth, and there's no one right way to see something or to interpret something. And I think at the very base, we should all be desiring to at least try and understand, especially in times of injustice. Like, let's at least try to understand where everyone is coming from. So both, any side of any argument, Democratic, Republican, like whatever side of any argument you're on, I will always give you the benefit of the doubt of at least trying to understand what makes you see reality in the way that you're seeing it. And then I can be like, okay, it's because you were raised by this culture. Your parents implied these things on you. You have these experiences, right? And that's what formed your personality to be who you are. And a lot of people haven't torn off the layers of those personality things to get to truth yet. And I can have compassion for that, right? So just having compassion for other people's perspectives, I think, is super important. And keeping that in mind when we communicate. If someone's disagreeing with you, it's their perspective. Like, I can't argue your perspective, it's yours. So so
yeah, and acknowledging it and allowing it, having space for how someone else shows up. Even if it's not how you'd wish they'd show up.
And we can, well, we can, but it doesn't, I don't think it serves us to judge others. It really serves us to focus on, so cliche, but focus on the positive things. So like what I see them doing wrong, I'm actually going to do right times 100. I'm not going to point out how they're doing it wrong. And then I'm going to teach other people how to do it right times 100. But I'm not here to change anyone. Like, we're here to show what it looks like to take the path of love and support with one another.
Lovely. Yes. So there was an element I just got there of, even if the person in front of you isn't the one that's going to change, it's an opportunity for you to see what you would like in the world. It's a great message, a great messenger that they just showed up and pissed you off. So you're like, oh, okay, that's important to me.
Yeah.
And I noticed that being in that group and looking at how I communicate, I'm no longer, I need to download everything I'm aware of. That, like you just said, this is how someone was raised their whole life, the programming and the conditioning, it's tied to who they think they are, their personality, even if, is it? So I don't have to address all of that. I'm like, what's one thing that we can agree on? And how you said, like, the bigger picture, all of us would just like to belong and feel loved and be on this path where we feel connected. And so what are tiny connection points? So I've noticed my communication when I want to approach someone who has a different outlook, my mind scans, like my awareness scans, what is something like, oh, do we both like dogs? Let's start there. That's pretty universal. Unless they're a cat person. Oh, do you love animals? Let's start there. So just making that touch point to so this goes, look at, here we go, here's my full circle moment, tying it back in. Fingers crossed your battery doesn't die.
I think we'll be good. Okay. We're good.
So by making that connection point, even if it's minuscule, faced with the destruction of the planet, but we both love animals, that touches into the nervous system and the calm. Like, so is that true? That's what I've been guessing. Like, then we could be in a place of connection instead of, like, when I communicate with people now, I'm like, what can I do so that I don't drive them into their fight or flight mode more, but I invite them into a calmness, and then we can connect from there.
That's a beautiful, like, intuitive technique in a way that you've been, or route that you've been taking. Yeah, I haven't considered that before, but what I'm hearing you say is you're connecting on something based on, like, safety and truth in their nervous system. And that's always a great place to start. Like there a lot of times if I'm triggered or in my fight or flight, I can't see past what I'm thinking and what I'm protecting myself from. It's impossible. Like it's how our biology is, right? Our behavioral just our ways of behaving are. So yeah, connecting in that space, that little space of relaxation and ease to expand that and then have a clearer perspective is awesome.
Yes. Yeah, that's my biggest hope for how we can all like I'd love, yeah. The tool that I believe will have the greatest impact is something along those lines, because being angry and an asshole and yelling at people hasn't gotten me as far.
Mm-mm.
It hasn't created as much as just in this year. So, all right, Samantha. So, are there any thoughts? You have a gift to offer the listeners, and before you share about that, are there any tie up any dangling thoughts from our chat today?
Mm-hmm. Let me just check in for a second and see. I think the biggest message that I believe you'll resonate with this too. The biggest message that we're collectively trying to get across is that like your true nature is already in you, and there are some layers right now, negative, positive, whatever you want to call them. There's just some layers, and I think it's really beneficial for everyone to be curious and inquisitive about those layers and have more self-awareness so that they can be more successful, enjoy their lives more, and then together we can get out of the way and enjoy ourselves more in connection. So
yeah, there's not layers in the way, like
yeah, trying to dig through.
We're blocked by like hanging plastic sheets, and like I'm trying to get to go say hi to you. Yeah, I love that visual of layers too, because like it's not saying there's anything wrong with us. There's just some layers, and are those layers serving you currently? Did they serve you before? Are they going to serve you in the future? Would you like to try on a different layer? Would you like to release a layer?
Yeah, absolutely.
So much ease. So how can people find you and connect with you, Samantha?
Yeah, so our Instagram is where I'm in partnership in business with my best friend, Brooke Barber. She's a hypnotherapist, and we do programs and events together. And the combination of both of our magic is quite beautiful. So you can find us on Instagram. We have a business Instagram. It's sacred_transformations. So sacred_transformations on Instagram. And there in our bio, you can find all of our offerings. We have a free ebook called Who Are You Anyways? And that's everything that we're talking about, right? It's a little sassy.
I love that.
I like it that way. And nice. It goes into like the mindset and the nervous system and everything we're talking about today, as well as we just launched like a small offering for everyone in addition to our normal offerings. And it's a lot about what we're talking about right now. It's a ritual actually to connect with your true self so that you can magnetize your dream life. So like we said earlier, being weird and being your true self is your destiny. So it's just a ritual connecting to that true self more and more, and embodying that true self so that you can attract your destiny, essentially.
I love it. I'm going to share those connect links on the show notes or below wherever I'm posting this. So it should be easy for folks to find you. I super enjoyed connecting with you today. My nervous system is very relaxed. I feel open to connection.
Beautiful.
And this was just chatting. Like, hey, everyone listening, imagine having a session or working with Samantha directly, what that would create for you. If anyone would like to share their thoughts, what they got out of this episode, feel free to reach out and message me. Let's say on Instagram also, at Zara Darling. You could DM me. And this was such a joy, and my body is thanking you for being here. My being is thanking you for being here with us, Samantha, and thank you for sharing yourself, your insight, your wisdom, your special magical glow with everyone listening in. So we appreciate you. Thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening and sharing. Have a great rest of your day, whichever part of the day you're in. The next 24 hours, may they be weird, speed of space, filled with your own clarity and knowingness, and a contribution to you and your potency beyond what you ever imagined possible.